Alright, welcome everyone. This is Scott here again with a new video to help you learn how to trade, invest, and master your finances so you can apply that knowledge in the real world and multiply your money. And in this video here, I'm going to show you a bit of research that I did a while back as part of one of my SKILLSHARE courses, and it's going to show you just how often implied volatility overstates historical volatility. And this is going to have some very important implications in regards to options trading, and I'll talk about that at the end of this video. Now, before diving in here, for those of you who are new to the channel, and I kind of just alluded to this here, I just want to let you know that I do also teach on SKILLSHARE, where you can take my very in-depth classes on options trading and stock market investing. And I provided some links to some of the introductory courses of mine in the description of this video below. So be sure to check those out, and when you sign up for SKILLSHARE using any of those links, you'll get a 2-week free trial. Alright, so now if I come over here, and what you're looking at is a basic Go application. It's just a computer program that I wrote which will analyze a time series of S&P 500 data alongside VIX data in order to figure out just how often implied volatility overstates historical volatility. And don't worry, understanding this code is totally not required. I just want to show you this to give you some context into how I did this research and to how this is going to work. So this is my computer program, and then over here on this tab, this is my time series of SPY data. And I do know it's a bit difficult to read this data given the format, and I'll try and zoom in here a bit to make it somewhat easier. But essentially the way this works, and you can actually get this data from Yahoo Finance, that's where I got it. For each row, and let's look at the first row here, we have a date, so the year 2000, November 1st, and then separated by commas, we have the opening price, the high, the low, the closing price, the adjusted closing price, and the volume for the entire month of November, year 2000. So this is monthly data going all the way back to the year 2000, right? So you can see for the next row, the next date or time frame here is the year 2000, but December. And then same thing for that entire month. What was the opening price for that month on December 1st? What was the highest price that SPY got to during that month? What was the lowest price? What was the closing price for that month? The adjusted closing price, and the total volume for that entire month. And the same kind of pattern here just repeats for every single month all the way to the year 2020, I believe, and to the month of October. Like I said, I did this research a little while ago, so at the time when I did this research, it must have been October of 2020. And I certainly could add more data to the spreadsheet going up to today, but the outcome of this analysis, of this research, is going to still be exactly the same. And so alongside this monthly SPY data, I have the exact same kind of data, but for the VIX. And for each month, I have the opening price for the VIX, the high, the low, the closing price for that month, etc., etc. And so now what my computer program is going to do is it's going to read through both of this SPY data and also the VIX data at the same time. And for each month, it's going to look at the implied volatility as stated by the VIX for that particular month. So for example here, the closing price for the VIX in November of the year 2000 was 29.65%. And so my computer program is going to take this number and then convert it to a monthly time frame, right? Because this number here, this 29.65%, is actually quoted on a 1-year time frame. So it's basically saying that 1 year from November 1st of the year 2000, the market was expecting the possibility of the S&P 500 to be either up or down by around 29.65%. But I want to see what the implied move was over just a 1-month period. So just for the month of November, what was the implied move for the S&P 500 as stated by the VIX? And there's some pretty simple mathematics you can apply to implied volatility to convert it onto any time frame that you want, either 1 day, a week, a month, in my case here, so on and so forth. So again, just to clarify and sum everything up here, my program is going to look at this month, November of the year 2000. It's then going to take the value of the VIX for that month and convert it onto a monthly time frame to see what was the implied move for the S&P 500 over that month. What was the market expecting the S&P 500 to do? And then for that same month, coming over to the SPY data now, which basically is the S&P 500, it's going to see what was the actual historical move of the S&P 500 over that same month. And then it will just compare the two. Perhaps the implied move for that month was either up or down by 5%, but the actual historical move, once that month actually played out, was the S&P 500 moved up by only 2.5%. So in that case, implied volatility overstated historical volatility. And so now if I come over here, I can actually run this program and you'll see the results. So I've already typed out here the command to run this program. So now I'm just going to press enter, and now we can see the results here. And so the output here, the way this works is for each month in the data set, it's going to show you what the expected or the implied move was for that month. So in this case, for the month of January 2020, right, from January 1st to February 1st, what was the expected move for that month? And in this case, it was either up or down by 5.49%. And the actual move in this case was the S&P 500 moved down by almost 8%. So this is actually one of the rare cases where the actual historical move was greater than the implied move. And this shouldn't be surprising because around February, March, and April, this was when the market crashed by over 35% because of the coronavirus. And obviously, implied volatility, the VIX was not expecting that to happen. So of course, the historical moves of the S&P 500 greatly exceeded what was expected. So this was a very rare time. But as you can see, if I scroll down just a little bit, not that much later after that point, right, in this case for the month of May 2020, from May 1st to June 1st, the expected or implied move was up or down by 8%. And that's because the implied volatility across the market was still very high after that crash. But in actuality, over this month, the S&P 500 only moved up by 1.33%. So this is a great example where the implied volatility greatly overstated the historical volatility. And like I said, this kind of pattern here just repeats for every single month in the data set. And now if I scroll to the bottom, you can see some high-level stats over the entire time period. And the most important one to look at will be right here. The percentage of the time where implied volatility was overstated was 84.52%. So the vast majority of the time, the expected moves of the S&P 500, as stated by the VIX, is way greater than what actually happens over that time period. Moreover, we can also see the average implied volatility overestimate. So of all the times where the implied volatility was greater than the actual historical volatility, on average, by how much was that overstatement? And we can see here, it was about 2.6%. So that's obviously not a huge amount, which shows you that implied volatility is reasonably accurate. The VIX is not bad at predicting what is likely going to happen with the market over a certain time period. But obviously, as I just said, the vast majority of the time, what is expected to happen is usually overstated. And then for the few times where implied volatility actually understated historical volatility, where the S&P 500 actually moved beyond what was expected, the average difference there was only 0.23%. So in those rare cases where the market did indeed move beyond what was expected, on average at least, it did not move beyond that amount by very much. Again, proving the point that implied volatility is still reasonably accurate. And so now what does all this mean for options traders? Right, like I said at the beginning of this video, there are some very important implications that come from the fact that implied volatility most of the time overstates historical volatility. And specifically, this means that the options on any stock or any ETF, because this implied volatility overstatement applies to all stocks and all ETFs, not just the S&P 500, this means all the options you see here, the vast majority of the time have inflated prices. Right, as I've said many times in my other YouTube videos, implied volatility is used to price options. And as implied volatility expands, so do the prices of options. And then of course, conversely, if implied volatility contracts, then the prices of options decrease along with it. But still, if implied volatility is greater than it should be most of the time, that means the prices of these options are greater than they should be most of the time. And that is the main reason why you should be selling options, not buying them. When you sell options, you are selling an overpriced product, and that's going to be beneficial for you as the seller. And that means as the buyer, you are automatically disadvantaged. You are paying way more than you should. Now, of course, there are many other things that go into a successful option trading strategy. You can't just blindly sell options everywhere and expect to make money long term. But when you decide to take the approach of option selling as opposed to option buying, that means the vast majority of the time, when you send that order to open a new trade, you automatically already have the upper hand. And so that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And please let me know your thoughts or if you have questions in the comment section below. And don't forget, if you want to take some very in-depth classes on options trading and stock market investing, then check out my Skillshare courses. Links in the description of this video. And finally, if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up, drop a comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I drop new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you don't want to miss out. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.